Mom. What are you doing today?
Providence Place, owned by the Sisters of Providence, an ideal rental setting for retirees to continue their active, independent lifestyles. We have bright 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, a magnificent chapel with daily mass, restaurant-style dining, and wellness and entertainment programs. Call for a tour, 413-534-9700.
Mom, call me when you're not so busy.
Coming up on this edition of Reel to Reel. Springfield Bishop Mitchell Rosansky announces the appointment of a new task force. Catholic School Superintendent Dan Belarjan shares how the Catholic schools are adapting their educational practices during the coronavirus pandemic. And honk if you love your priests and deacons. Dozens of parishioners did just that. All coming your way on this edition of Reel to Reel. Hello and welcome to Reel to Reel. As part of the Diocese of Springfield's ongoing efforts to justly and compassionately handle all allegations of sexual misconduct, this past Wednesday, Bishop Mitchell Rosansky announced the creation of an independent task force that will be making recommendations on how the diocese can be better responsive to this important obligation to all victims of abuse. During an afternoon press conference, Bishop Rosansky introduced the chair, retired Massachusetts Superior Court Judge Daniel Ford of Pittsfield, and Vice Chair Irene Woods of Greenfield, who is founding executive director of the Children's Advocacy Center of Franklin County and the North Quabbin. The mission of the 10-member task force is to receive the report currently being prepared by Judge Peter Vilas regarding the diocese's handling of allegations of sexual abuse by the late Springfield Bishop Christopher J. Weldon, as well as direct feedback from other abuse survivors and family members.
So waiting for those recommendations and having this task force set up means that we can get started immediately. So I think it's so important, so crucial for us as a diocese that we do this right, we do this correctly, and ultimately we will have all those things in place that we really need to provide both safe environment for all who come to us and response for those survivors of sexual abuse.
The naming of this task force is just the latest action undertaken by the diocese to improve its safe environment efforts. In June 2019, Jeffrey Trant was brought on board as the director of the Diocesan Office of Safe Environment and Victim Assistance. Under his leadership, the diocese has commissioned the Judge Peter Vilas investigation, brought on a new team of investigators, and earlier this month signed on to a joint memorandum of understanding with the 3 district attorneys' offices whose jurisdictions cover all of Western Massachusetts and the Diocese of Springfield. In his address to the media, Judge Ford said the task force will advise the Bishop of Springfield with specific steps for improvement in the following areas: acknowledging the trauma of sexual abuse on members of our community and ensuring the allocations of resources needed to promote healing of survivors. Responding to all allegations of sexual abuse in our church community in a timely, compassionate, and fair way. Ensuring the diocese has a transparent system of protocols and procedures that guarantee respect and due process for all involved. Ensuring that local church leadership is held responsible and accountable for failing to protect children and other vulnerable persons. Holding those who have been credibly accused of sexual abuse responsible and accountable. And preventing sexual abuse of anyone in our faith communities in the future.
Once we receive Judge Vilas' report, we expect that his report will set forth his thoughts about what ought to be done in the future. That's our starting point. But we're not going to end there. We intend to collect further information, further data from various stakeholders, including survivors of clergy abuse, perhaps members of the clergy and other stakeholders, to get their perspective and their information, and use that information to perhaps build on Judge Vilas' recommendations.
Additional members of the task force include Orlando Azaza of East Hampton, Ronald Johnson of Springfield, Father Michael Pierce of Agawam, Sister of St. Joseph Mary Quinn of Springfield, James Stankowitz of Dalton, Joan Tabashnik of Northampton, Father William Tarigny of Chicopee, and Amber Zinni of Northampton, and Maurice Beauvert of Shrewsbury, who will serve as a planning consultant. The Judge Vilas report has not yet been delivered to the diocese, but is expected in the near future, at which time it will be released in its entirety to the public. You can find more information on this task force, including bios of the members, at iobserve.org. Well, as we head into the month of June, Catholic schools in the Diocese of Springfield are winding down their academic years. It's been a very different second half of the year for sure, since the COVID-19 pandemic forced the elementary and high schools to implement distance learning back in mid-March. But school administrators, teachers, and staff have rallied together from the beginning, successfully shifting from the classroom to digital platforms. Earlier this week, I sat down with Dan Balargin, Superintendent of Catholic Schools. We met at St. Michael's Academy in Springfield in an empty classroom to talk about how the schools will be wrapping up this school year and what the next academic year might look like. Well, welcome, Dr. Balargin. It's nice to see you today, and it's, I guess, great to be back in the classroom, albeit no one's here, but...
Yeah, it's a completely different reality. So being in even a classroom like this, you see the kids' stuff packaged up and schools trying to figure out how to close the year off well. Our schools have been fantastic. So we've continued instructing, we've continued assessing the students, making sure they're learning. But now it's going to be a difficult few weeks as kids transition out of this new school into their summers. How we're going to handle graduation ceremonies, how we're going to handle some of these end of the year things. But our schools have been great. They've been very good. Our administrators, our teachers, they have really stepped up, and I couldn't be prouder of them for what they've done during this difficult time.
Well, take us back to around March 17th, I guess, basically, when the kids a few days before that thought they were coming back, and then, it went week by week, and then it got longer and longer. What have all of the schools been doing since the lockdown?
So it's like a time capsule, right? You're sitting in the room too, you can see it. It's like everything stopped. You have bulletin boards up from March still, right? And so the tangible part and this part of community that we feel in our schools, we've really been missing, like as far as being together. But I think that's been the way it has been in every industry, including our churches, which just reopened, which is beautiful. But in the beginning, you're right, we thought maybe a couple weeks, right? How can we continue instruction for a few weeks? But all of our schools did not miss a beat because they didn't even want to lose 2 weeks. And so they got right to remote instruction. Some of them virtually. Some were ready already to go online and have Zoom meetings. Others sent materials home to the students. And then as we saw this progressing as a school's office and as schools, we realized that we probably were in this for the long haul. So we started providing professional development for our folks. We started connecting teachers virtually from around all the different schools so that they can share best practices and ideas. And through those collaborations, learning continued. And so that really, I think, is a testament to what they did. The struggles still maintain. How do we know what the kids are doing in their homes? How can we assess what they're learning? But we've continued to provide guidance and support. And it talks to the strength of our system. Most of our schools haven't really needed to go into depth with this support because they figured it out. The principals figured it out. The teachers figured it out. All we were doing then was helping to keep them connected with one another and then keep connected with their families. Mm-hmm.
So it's working out so far. And when is the last day for the students, and will there be graduations and all of these? Virtual graduations? Are they going to be in places?
So that's really interesting because that's even changed over the past few days, I guess, how we're going to handle graduation. We know that these events are really important. These rite of passage events are really important. And some have tried to do them really well virtually. Some are still holding out hope that we can do some of them physically. But again, the creativity that we've seen, everybody was planning in some way to do, whether it was a Zoom graduation or a parking lot graduation where the families came in their cars and they decorated their cars, and then they would get the commencement, and then one student at a time would walk up following all of the proper social distance protocols. But with Mass being opened for the diocese, a lot of our graduation commencements occur within the Mass. So it is just a Mass, and then there's the distribution of diplomas that comes afterwards. So I talked with Bishop Rosansky, and he approved that if schools wanted the Mass to be part of the commencement of the graduation, that they could go ahead and do that, making sure that they're observing all of the social distance protocols that we have in place for our parishes. So some of our schools are ready to do that. Some had put such great plans together for their parking lot graduations that they're going to continue to do that. And some are going to continue to do what they think is best virtually. So they have the freedom, and they're really being creative in how they're using those freedoms to celebrate. One other thing we're trying to do in our office is we're trying to put together a campaign to celebrate the graduates. So we're thinking of billboards or something with our graduates from our 8th grades and from our high schools, so that we can show everybody this group of extraordinary students that have finished out this year as well, because they too have gone above and beyond. And we want to make sure that we recognize them well for their achievements.
Do you have any thoughts, any plans, anything in the works for the fall, even though we really haven't finished this school year yet? But, you know, it comes so quickly, and I mean, I guess we have to wait to see what the state says, right?
Yeah, we have to wait for the state, because they're going to be, so we closed, we would have closed anyways, most likely, right? Because it was a responsible thing to do, but we also closed because the state told us we couldn't be open. So we have to wait to see if the state gives our Catholic schools specific guidelines. At the same time, we can create frameworks, and that's what we're doing. So we're trying to create broad frameworks that will support us if we are in full time and we need to socially distance, so kind of spread classes out a little bit more than we need to. If we're hybrid, what it looks like to be in part-time and have a part-time online component or remote component, and what we need to do if we're fully remote. And in each of these frameworks, we're just building so that when we get the decision from our state or from the CDC or whoever we're following, that we're ready to implement one of those 3 frameworks and put all of our energy into creating it. So there is work being done, but not specifically yet, because that would, you know, this is ever changing, as you know, from day to day. Yeah. So if we have these general buckets, then we will be able to put all of our energy into making sure that in each school it looks the very best it will. And that's what we can guarantee as a Catholic school system is we are going to provide the instruction to the best of our ability. We're going to do everything we can to integrate the faith. We're going to do everything we can to maintain a sense of community, regardless of where we are in that paradigm, because we believe a Catholic education is important no matter what. And so our schools are ready, and they're flexible enough to be ready for next year. And again, I can't say it enough. It's a testament to the leadership of our schools, to the commitment our families have for Catholic education, and we're going to continue to do our very best for them.
So we're in a school like St. Michael's Academy that has a number of classrooms, a number of desks. What do you think that would look like come the fall, like in your estimation? Because when you talk about, you know, kids needing to be 6 feet apart, and will they be able to understand? That's what I'm thinking of, like little kindergartners and first graders, and I mean, I guess they're probably already understanding it maybe more than we know. Like, you have little kids, do they get it?
Yes and no. I think that while we have to remember that while most kids are in this new reality, they haven't actually gone out in public in this new reality, right? So we're recommending these things like masks and everything else. We have to be careful, I think, to balance the emotional needs of our kids and their physical needs, right? We have to be careful to manage. We cannot, just say, well, everybody's going to come in with a mask and then think that that's going to like solve the problem. It's not. There's an emotional there's an emotional need that needs to be fit in that particular context, right? Kids who aren't used to it walking around and seeing everybody with masks, not being able to touch their friends and things like this. So we have to be very careful that what school looks like, as much as possible, provides a sense of community, a sense of stability, a sense of safety, not just physical safety, emotional safety and security, taking advantage of the fact that our churches will be open at that time, taking advantage of the liturgy, right? So they can be all together in one space, because gathering spaces are something that, might be limited. Mm-hmm. Being together for Mass would be a beautiful way for them to be connected with one another. But we're very creative, so we have to follow the guidelines and directives. But we can be very creative in what that looks like, making sure that we're doing it well. And I think that that is where our energies are going to go toward, so that when our kids come back into a classroom, they feel like they're home. That's what we want them to feel like. We want them to feel like they're in a place where they're loved, not where they're just taught, but where they're loved. And we need to do the same with our families, a place where they feel safe, welcome, and home with us.
Well, let's all pray and hope for the best, and we'll see what happens in the next few months, and we'll just have to all, go with the flow, I guess. That's all we can do, right?
That's right, yeah. And if you're, I would say, to kind of wrap up, like our Catholic schools will be open next year. We're not closing. We're not shutting our doors. We are going to continue to do what we need to. So for anybody who wants, reach out to the schools and ask them what they're doing, and you'll really be surprised at how great the response has been.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Hats off to all the Catholic schools in the diocese for working so hard to provide the best education possible. And we will certainly keep you up to date when plans for the fall are announced. And still to come on Reel to Reel, area parishioners show their love for their priests and deacons. And students at St. Michael's Academy in Springfield show their appreciation for the faculty and staff for all they do. It's all still to come on this edition of Reel to Reel.
The Chalice of Salvation, your weekly spiritual connection. I'm Brother Terrence Scanlon, inviting you to take time out of your busy day and join us Sunday morning. We welcome Father Christopher Vatekas from St. Mary's Parish, Longmeadow, and celebrate the Feast of Pentecost. The Chalice of Salvation, Sunday mornings at 10 on 22 News WWLP, and coming up next on Albany's Fox 23 WXXA.
Hi, Mom. What are you doing today?
Providence Place, owned by the Sisters of Providence, an ideal rental setting for retirees to continue their active, independent lifestyles. We have bright 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, a magnificent chapel with daily mass, restaurant-style dining, and wellness and entertainment programs. Call for a tour, 413-534-9700.
Mom, call me when you're not so busy.
Butcher, baker, candlestick maker. I didn't care what they grew up to be as long as they were happy. To give up marriage and children just seems like too much to walk away from.
He seems to think he's making a real difference in people's lives, and he's so happy. Isn't that what's most important?
I never would have imagined our son as a Catholic priest.
While churches in the Diocese of Springfield had been closed over the last few months, many parishioners were missing their priests and deacons, and they wanted to let them know just how much their ministry means. Carolee McGrath tells us more.
With New York, New York blaring in the background, car after car rounded the corner from Groton Street in Chicopee, honking and waving at Father Bill Torigny, pastor of St. Rose de Lima Parish.
Totally shocked and very much surprised, and it's so overwhelming and is so appreciated. I didn't expect anything at all. It's humbling more than anything else.
More than 100 cars staged at St. Rose de Lima Cemetery in Chicopee waiting for the signal. Then, drivers made their way up Groton Street for a car parade to celebrate Father Torigny's 40th anniversary as a priest. The parish had planned a celebration party at the Castle of Knights in Chicopee, but due to the coronavirus pandemic, it has been postponed. Parishioner Dave Rosinski helped organize the surprise.
We couldn't have the party on the 17th, so I said, let's do something. This is the current thing to do. And we just started organizing it. I was supposed to call, but the cars were already coming. So I ran to the back door and said, hey, I just was near the center here, the parish center, and the police are there. There's a problem. So he came out. Yeah, he had no clue.
Father Torigny's mother, Norma, who held a picture of him when he was newly ordained, says he always wanted to become a priest.
We would go to Mass, and we'd come home, and he would spread the tablecloth on the toy chest, and he would have the wine glass, and the kids would used to ring the bells, and we'd give them the wafers, the white wafers, and then when he would do the genuflection, they lift his cape up, and it was just wonderful.
While being away from church has been hard and even heartbreaking for parishioners, it's been especially difficult for priests who are also isolated, who are called to administer the sacraments and to serve as Christ served.
We weren't ordained to look at something like the event of COVID-19, where all of a sudden in a heartbeat the churches are closed and all of a sudden we can't minister to our people in hospitals, nursing homes, private visits, morning mass, weekend masses, weddings, baptisms. It's all been pushed off.
Churches which are now permitted to be open had been closed since mid-March when Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker issued an emergency order in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Many churches in the Diocese of Springfield have been posting masses online. Drive-by parades for birthdays, anniversaries, schools, and pastors have now become popular as people are not permitted to congregate in large groups. St. Elizabeth Parish in Ludlow held a Miss You caravan for Pastor Monsignor Homer Goslin, Father Norman Bolton, Deacon Norman Grondin, Deacon Thomas Rickson, and Deacon Keith Davies. More than 150 cars met at the Polish American Club on East Street before traveling to Hubbard Street. Everyone stayed inside their vehicles but hung signs and balloons out of their windows while others popped through the sunroof. Monsignor Goslin just celebrated his 51st anniversary as a priest, and he agreed with Father Torigny that he never expected something like this when he was ordained.
I see God's hand working everywhere. We see God's hands working to create an event like this. We see God's hands working at the emergency rooms, in first responders, people brave enough to work grocery stores and all the essential services. So I see God's hand working in so many people. It's edifying that putting their own personal safety at risk, they're willing to do for others. So I guess we've seen the minds and the hearts and the hands and the feet of Christ and the people that surround us. We're so blessed. We're so blessed.
While the pandemic has brought with it isolation and loss, both priests encourage Catholics to always remember to say, Jesus, I trust in you. Reporting for Reel to Reel, I'm Carolee McGrath.
I think one thing that's come out of this pandemic is just how much truly we appreciate those who serve us in any way. And we want to send our best wishes to Father Daniel Brunton, who last week marked his 60th anniversary as a priest. And expressing gratitude is the theme of our last piece today. We have a video put together by St. Michael's Academy highlighting students and families who wanted to thank their teachers and administrators for all that they do.
Saint Michael, we stand together with you. Awake and alive, our hearts are true. Piercing the future with your mighty sword, your shield protecting God's holy word. Saint Michael, we stand together with you. From near and afar, both now and then, our morning star arises anew. His holy light gathers us in. These are the days that never end. Saint Michael, we stand together with you. Spirit of our holy star, sanctioned by God who chose us to lead. You are the perfect defender indeed. Saint Michael, we stand together with you. Saint Michael, we stand together with you. Awake and alive, our hearts are true. Piercing the future with your mighty sword, your shield protecting God's holy word. Saint Michael, we stand together with you. Saint Michael, we stand together with you.
Oh, those smiling little faces just say it all, don't they? How sweet. And for this week, that's Reel to Reel. As always, to keep up with all of the latest news on the Catholic Church, both here in the Diocese of Springfield and around the world, you can check out our news and information site, iobserve.org. Also, you can like us at Facebook at Catholic Communications. And just a reminder that the annual Catholic Appeal is ongoing, funds from which help to support numerous services and ministries across our diocese, including the weekly televised Mass, the Chalice of Salvation, which has been so important during this pandemic, as well as this very program. So if you haven't yet responded to the 2020 Annual Catholic Appeal, please consider doing so online at diospringfield.org. That's diospringfield.org, and look for the Annual Catholic Appeal link. Thank you in advance. I will see you right back here next week for another edition of Reel to Reel, your window on the world around you. See you then.
Reel to Reel is a production of the Catholic Communications Corporation, funded in part by the Annual Catholic Appeal, and the support of you, our faithful viewers.